Learn English easy. It's the start of 2026, and I can just feel it. The old ways are, well, they're not working anymore. We're only a few weeks in, and I'm already seeing this huge shift, almost a tectonic shift, in how people are behaving, what they're prioritizing.
It feels like more than just a calendar flipping over this time, you know? It's like a genuine cultural exhaustion has set in.
Ah, yes.
I see you've brought your usual mountain of research, but I also see you've swapped your classic neon yellow highlighter for a, what is that, a slate gray pencil?
It is. Maybe a little visual metaphor for the times.
Oh, I think so.
No loud logos on my stationery today. But you're so right. There's a new vibration, a new feeling in the air. For years, everything was about volume.
Oh, absolutely. Louder, bigger, faster. Louder social media, faster fashion, bigger logos, flashier, everything. It was just a race for more. And honestly, it was exhausting.
If the last few years were the era of aggression where it was all about consumption and noise, then 2026 is without a doubt the year of the edit. People aren't just slowing down. They are actively, deliberately curating their lives.
They're cutting things out.
Exactly. Eliminating the friction, the noise.
I think that is the perfect way to frame it. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Our mission today is to really get into the biggest cultural and psychological movements that are defining this new era. We're calling it the authentic shift.
Which is a huge move back toward quality, real human connection, and self-possession.
From more to better.
Precisely. And we've seen this shift show up across 4 really distinct but totally interconnected pillars.
Okay.
We'll start with the external stuff, the changes you can actually see, like in fashion.
Then we'll move inward and look at how we're editing our social lives and even our personal identities. And finally, we have to tackle the digital world because, let's be honest, none of this is possible without dealing with the source of all that noise.
I love that. It's a clear roadmap. It gives you, the listener, a logical path through a really complex topic. So let's start where this shift is maybe the most obvious, the most visible. The wardrobe edit.
Let's.
The first pillar is quiet luxury. Now, if you were just looking at headlines, say, 6 months ago, you might think, oh, this is just a fad.
Yeah, driven by a couple of TV shows.
Exactly. But what we're seeing now is a really deep cultural adoption of this idea.
Yeah.
It's defined by what people are not wearing.
Right.
No screaming logos, no obvious gold chains. It's subtle, it's powerful, and it's deeply understated.
Sure.
But let's get granular here. For our listeners who know the basics, what is the core psychological and, I guess, economic definition of quiet luxury?
Okay, so the psychological core is just one word: restraint. It's a deliberate choice to reject that impulse, you know? The impulse for immediate look-at-me consumption. And economically, it's mimicking the old money aesthetic.
The generational wealth look.
The generational wealth look, exactly. And why? Because people who have had wealth for a long time, they just don't need validation from strangers. Their clothes aren't ads.
They're jealous.
They're tools for living well. They value things that last, things that can be passed down. So quality, naturally, is prioritized way above seasonal trends.
So it shifts the whole value statement from, look at the expensive logo I bought, to something more like, look at the impeccable tailoring and the quality of this fabric, which I recognize and value.
Precisely, and that distinction is everything. It's not about signaling wealth outwardly to everyone. It's about having an internal standard for yourself.
Okay.
The people who get it, the tailor, the designer, maybe a fellow enthusiast, they'll recognize the garment. And that quiet shared recognition is so much more meaningful than a shouted logo.
It's like a secret language.
It is. Think of a perfect cashmere sweater. There's no label, but when you touch it, when you feel the drape and the density of the knit, you just know. You know it's a quality, expensive piece. It's a secret between you and the material itself.
But, okay, this brings up a really critical question. We have to address this for a deep dive audience. Isn't quiet luxury just inherently elitist? It feels like it's just trading one form of obvious consumption for a much more expensive, harder-to-get form of inconspicuous consumption.
It's a very important critique.
It feels like it creates this new, subtle status boundary that excludes way more people than, an accessible fast fashion logo ever did.
And that's a deeply important point, and it's honestly why this trend is so complex. And yes, you're right. The initial price tag for true quiet luxury is high. A perfectly tailored coat costs a lot more than a mass-produced jacket.
Of course.
However, the shift isn't just about buying $5,000 items. It's about a change in your intent.
Okay, the mindset.
The mindset, when you democratize it, the quiet luxury mindset is a rejection of the whole planned obsolescence model. It's saying, I'm going to buy one high-quality, long-lasting thing instead of 5 disposable things.
And that's where you get the economic critique of fast fashion. We're finally rejecting that supply chain that's just built for disposability and waste.
Exactly. If we track the economic drivers here, a huge factor is the growing awareness of the environmental and the labor costs of that rapid-fire production.
Right.
So quiet luxury, even if you're investing at a lower level, it represents an investment in heritage, in craftsmanship, and longevity. You're buying fewer things, but those things have a higher material and ethical value.
Which ties perfectly back to the year of the edit. You're editing your closet down to high-quality basics that serve you instead of having this massive collection of trends that you have to serve.
Yes.
Let's dig a little deeper into the aesthetic markers, because for our listeners, the color palette really tells the story. We've moved away from that high-octane, almost anxious neon energy.
We have.
And we're back to these grounding, stable colors. You mentioned Cloud Dancer, Botanical Green, and Slate Gray. Can you unpack the psychology of those specific colors for us?
Sure. The palette is the visual proof of our desire for calm. Let's start with Cloud Dancer. It's that deep, rich, off-white, and that's crucial.
It's not a stark white.
No, stark white can feel clinical, almost aggressive. This is soft, it's warm, it suggests a kind of absence of anxiety. It feels organic and inviting.
That's the color of a well-loved, comfortable, luxurious room.
That's a great way to put it. Then you have Botanical Green. That immediately roots us in nature, in stability. It's not a military green. It's not a fluorescent green.
Right.
It's the green of deep moss or old trees. It gives us that organic connection we lost in that frantic digital era. And finally, Slate Gray provides the structure.
Ah, the backbone.
It's the backbone. It's sophisticated, it's authoritative, but, and this is key, it doesn't have the severity of pure black. It allows an outfit to have structure without being overly formal or, intimidating. And together, those 3 colors create a whole mood board of restraint, stability, and quiet confidence.
And we noted this is even showing up in huge life events like what people wear at their weddings.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. The 2026 bride is choosing a structured satin gown with almost no lace.
It's a total rejection of the princess spectacle.
Yes, for something more personal, more enduring.
It's a rejection of spectacle, yes, but it's an embrace of structure. Satin and quality tailoring, they rely on the cut and the materials draped, not a bunch of external sparkly things.
Right.
And this applies to everyone, not just brides. When you choose a simple, well-cut piece, you are prioritizing the architecture of the garment over its decoration. And that's really the so what of quiet luxury.
The big takeaway.
It's a visual statement that you value enduring quality and your own internal validation over temporary external praise. You are grounded in your own reality.
Trading that quick hit of validation for lasting satisfaction and this deep dive into quality and restraint, into intentionality. I mean, the whole essence of the wardrobe edit, it logically demands we do the same kind of edit in our personal lives.
It has to.
We have to look at what we're wearing, but then we have to look at who we're surrounding ourselves with.
Exactly.
This commitment to quality over quantity, it extends directly into our social lives, our social ecology. If we're editing our closets, we have to edit our massive, shallow digital friend lists. And this leads us to what the global community is now finally recognizing as a genuine public health crisis, the loneliness epidemic, the massive, massive problem.
It is. And the fact that the World Health Organization, the WHO, felt they had to launch a commission on social connection.
Right. That's active all through 2026.
That alone elevates this issue from, a personal feeling or a personal failing to a global societal collapse of connection. Loneliness isn't just a feeling anymore, it's a measurable risk factor.
Let's give our listeners the full weight of that data, because that 16% global figure, 1 in 6 people, that's just the headline.
Right.
What are the long-term studies telling us about the actual consequences of being chronically isolated?
Oh, the consequences are severe. Research, especially from groups that track social determinants of health, consistently shows that chronic social isolation carries health risks that are comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
15, wow.
It increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, dementia, premature mortality. This isn't just a mental health problem, it's physical decay. The scale is immense.
That is just a staggering human cost.
Yeah.
So how did we get here? What's the fundamental breakdown?
The diagnosis is that we prioritized connection speed over connection depth. We got hyper-efficient at connecting online, maintaining these digital ties with people all over the world. But in doing that, we lost the crucial ability to connect in line.
In line, meaning in person.
In our neighborhoods, in the grocery store. We lost the muscle memory of spontaneous proximity. Knowing your neighbors, having a local person you can rely on, really interacting with the butcher or the baker. We replaced reliable, close-by human connection with these vast but very fragile digital networks.
So the antidote can't be another app. It has to be something physical, something tangible. So what's the 2026 response to this huge deficit?
It's the intentional shrinking of our world back to a human scale. It's the magnificent rise of micro-communities.
Micro-community.
People are realizing that trying to maintain 500 shallow relationships is way less useful than cultivating 5 deep, reliable ones.
Okay, let's get a really clear, concrete definition for everyone. We know they're intentional. You said 5 to 15 members meeting regularly for a non-digital purpose. Why is that specific size, 5 to 15, why is that so crucial?
That range is based on principles of group dynamics and cognitive load.
Okay.
Groups smaller than 5, they often lack resilience if one person leaves, and they can get a little too emotionally intense. Groups larger than 15, they quickly lose that ability for deep mutual accountability. You can't give everyone personalized attention. So that sweet spot, 5 to 15, ensures everyone is seen, everyone is heard, and the admin work stays low.
And the non-digital purpose is the key.
It's the commitment to presence.
So they're not just forming groups to talk. They're meeting to do something together, which binds them with a shared physical activity.
Precisely. And we are seeing 3 dominant formats emerge that are really satisfying this hunger for authentic proximity.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of those 3.
First up, the neighborhood supper clubs. The mechanics are super simple. Members rotate hosting. They provide the main dish. The rules are strict. Mandatory, no phone policy at the table.
I love that.
And the conversation has to be about connection, not about status or work. It's an enforced commitment to presence, to shared vulnerability, and you're building trust through food and real conversation.
That forces a kind of deep focus that's just missing from most modern dinner parties.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the second type?
Second, we have the skill-sharing circles. And this ties directly back to what we were just talking about with quiet luxury. People are rejecting throwaway culture.
Right. They're embracing longevity.
Exactly. So these groups meet specifically to learn practical, tangible skills. We see groups of women meeting to learn darning and tailoring, to repair their high-quality clothes. We see others learning to bake bread, to garden, to do basic carpentry. You're building relationship equity right alongside practical life skills. It creates mutual dependence and tangible value.
So I'm not just making a friend. I'm finding someone who can help me fix my heirloom cashmere sweater.
Yes.
That's a real durable connection. And the third type, the hyperlocal book clubs.
These are a fascinating twist on an old idea. They're different because of their focus on the third place.
The third place.
They intentionally meet in neighborhood parks, local indie bookstores, or specific community cafes. The purpose is twofold. Discuss the book, sure, but more importantly, to activate and support the physical places in the community that foster that kind of spontaneous connection. Oh, that's smart.
If you are regularly seeing the same group of people reading in the same local park, you are literally strengthening the social fabric of that specific place.
I see the synthesis here. This is the fight against feeling like a floating island. You're actively investing in a small, resilient lifeboat. Instead of a network that just sees your online highlights, you have 5 people in a proximity-based system who know the moment you're struggling, they know when to bring over a casserole, or when you just need someone to sit in silence with you.
That reliability is the key psychological value. The strategy is to combat the vastness of global disconnection by ensuring you have hyper-local physical presence. We're affirming that profound truth that, proximity is often the best and most fundamental medicine for the soul.
It provides immediate physical resilience.
It does.
It's powerful. And if we're editing our wardrobes for lasting quality and we're editing our social circles for reliable proximity, that naturally leads to the next step, defining our own singular, authentic role within that smaller, more meaningful world.
Yes, it has to. This transition brings us to the identity edit. We have to talk about main character energy, or MCE.
MCE, yes.
It started as this, slightly self-mocking TikTok trend, but the concept has totally matured. It's a genuine lifestyle philosophy in 2026.
It really is.
If you're cutting out the digital noise and focusing on your micro-community, you have to define who you are. So the big question is still there. Is MCE just a Trojan horse for narcissism? Or is there a genuine psychological benefit we need to dig into?
We have to draw the psychological line immediately. If MCE meant you prioritize your needs and your drama over everyone else's, then yes, that's narcissism, full stop.
Right.
However, the 2026 maturity of MCE is entirely focused on one thing: agency.
Agency.
It's the difference between thinking the world revolves around you and deciding you are the one responsible for setting your own path within the world.
Okay, let's do a deep dive on agency. How does adopting the mindset of a protagonist differ from just being self-absorbed?
Agency is the belief that you have the power to make choices and to execute them, no matter what the external circumstances are. Okay.
A protagonist, by definition, is the one who drives the plot forward. So a person adopting MCE is deciding, I am the one responsible for the quality of my experiences and the direction of my life.
So you're not waiting for someone else to write your script.
Exactly. You are actively rejecting the role of a passive, supporting character in someone else's drama. It's pure narrative self-possession.
That's a huge distinction. So how does this mindset actually translate into making a boring Tuesday morning or a monotonous chore feel meaningful?
It translates through the practical application of MCE, which is called romanticizing the ordinary. This is the behavioral change.
Right.
It takes mundane, often passive activities, and it turns them into deliberate, high-value rituals. It's about being fully present and choosing an aesthetic interpretation of your own life.
Give us those practical, concrete examples that really define this movement.
Absolutely. Okay, take something as simple as your commute.
Ugh, the commute. The MCE mindset says you don't just passively endure the bus ride while doom scrolling. No. Instead, you put on a carefully curated soundtrack, you look out the window, you imagine you're the detective heading to the scene or the scholar on the way to the library. The commute is no longer wasted time. It's the transition montage sequence in your personal movie.
I love that.
Similarly, doing chores like grocery shopping, it becomes an intentional act of gathering provisions for the important work you'll do later. You're choosing the ripest produce, you're enjoying the small interactions with the staff.
It's turning a chore into a cinematic sequence.
Yeah.
It adds weight and purpose. And this must be incredibly helpful when you're facing setbacks or unexpected problems. The conflict analogy you mentioned.
It is vital. It's vital for building self-efficacy.
Okay, self-efficacy.
In psychology, self-efficacy is the belief in your ability to control your own motivation, your behavior, and your environment. When you romanticize the ordinary, you are constantly practicing these small acts of agency. So when a bad day hits, the conflict plot point, the person with MCE doesn't collapse and label themselves a failure. They recognize this is just narrative tension.
Right. It's part of the story.
The protagonist always faces setbacks, but they always figure out the solution.
So you're rooting for yourself. You're watching your hero solve the problem. It reframes struggle as, like, constructive and temporary and necessary for growth, rather than something permanent that defines you.
It stabilizes your identity. You shift from asking, why is this happening to me, to asking, how is the protagonist going to solve this challenge? And that practice builds deep internal resilience.
That's what separates the mature 2026 version of MCE from the original narcissistic joke.
Exactly.
Let's clarify that distinction one last time because it's so important for the listener. The difference between me-centric and story-centric thinking.
Me-centric is the narcissistic belief that your story is the only one that matters and everyone else is just, a prop. Story-centric is the realization that while you are the main character of your narrative, every single person you interact with, your micro-community, your colleagues, the cashier at the grocery store, is the complex, deeply interesting protagonist of their own story.
Wow, that's a powerful shift.
It fosters empathy and respect.
Yeah.
You're both equally important protagonists on these parallel, fascinating journeys. And this perspective makes those shared scenes, like a supper club dinner or a skill-sharing circle, incredibly rich, because you respect the complexity and the agency of everyone at the table.
That is a deeply grounding perspective.
Okay.
So we've defined our quality standard in clothes, we've defined our proximity standard in social life, and we've defined our agency standard in our identity. But none of this intentional, slow, grounded life can be built if we don't first manage the relentless external noise.
That's the foundation.
Which brings us to our final and maybe the most difficult, edit.
Mm-hmm.
To truly succeed in quiet luxury, micro-communities, and main character energy, you have to create cognitive space. You have to put the phone in its place.
You have to.
So we introduce the final pillar of the authentic shift, digital minimalism. This is not a casual log-off. This is what we are calling the great deletion of 2026.
An exodus is not too dramatic a word here. The data really backs up the severity of the fatigue. We're tracking search data for people looking to permanently delete their accounts.
Not just deactivate or snooze.
Not just snooze them. And we're consistently seeing close to 2 million unique searches a month focused on the logistics of permanent social media erasure. That is a collective cry for cognitive peace.
That implies people are just done. They're seeking a final break. What is the central painful mechanism that's driving this mass deletion?
It's the relentless comparison loop. For the last decade, we have lived inside this attention economy that has forced us to compare our complex, flawed, ordinary reality, the backdrop for our MCE life, against the hyper-curated, conflict-free, filtered highlight reels of thousands of strangers. And this comparison loop is a constant source of mental stress and distraction. It directly undermines the quiet confidence and the grounding that the authentic shift requires.
So if you're trying to romanticize your walk to the park, but your feed is showing you someone else's private jet vacation, the dissonance becomes unbearable.
Exactly. You cannot be fully present when you are constantly being reminded of what you perceive you're lacking. Therefore, digital minimalism, which was popularized by Cal Newport, becomes the philosophical antidote. It's not anti-technology, it's anti-distraction.
That's an important distinction.
It is. It means you brutally assess every piece of technology and every online behavior, and you make sure it aligns with and actively supports your deepest, highest goals. And if it doesn't, it has to be ruthlessly eliminated.
That is the ultimate edit. The philosophy is clear, but for the listener, we need the hard, actionable steps. Why now? Why are we suddenly done with the apps?
The shift is happening now because people have finally identified the immediate, actionable changes that lead to an immediate, quantifiable sense of relief. We're seeing 3 major specific practices being adopted very widely.
Okay, let's unpack those 3 practical changes that are defining this noise edit.
First, we have the rise of the brick phone mentality. This is where people deliberately strip their high-end, advanced smartphones of all the high-friction, low-value, addictive apps.
So the social media feeds, the news scroll sites.
The time-wasting games, all of it deleted. The phone keeps its high functionality for calls, texts, navigation, maybe music, but it removes the sources of that compulsive checking. It turns the device from an attention vampire into a dedicated tool.
So you're using the technology's power while surgically removing its greatest weakness. Smart. What's the second boundary-setting change?
The second is intentional browsing. This is all about creating severe time-based boundaries to protect your cognitive energy. The goal is to eliminate fragmented attention.
The constant checking.
Yeah, where you check an email notification or a news alert every 7 minutes, constantly pulling you out of deep work. People are designating strict time blocks for low-value tasks like email or news. And the famous boundary a lot of people are adopting is the 10.00 a.m. rule.
The 10.00 a.m. rule.
Nothing passive, nothing that seems urgent is checked before 10 a.m. This protects those crucial high-energy morning hours for focused work or, again, for romanticizing the ordinary.
That is a critical protection of your focus. You start the day on your own terms, not the algorithm's terms.
Okay.
And the third change.
The third, and maybe the most effective for mental hygiene, is adopting analog alarms. The simple practice of getting the phone out of the bedroom entirely.
Well, that's a big one.
The device stays in a different room overnight. This prevents 2 major dopamine traps. The temptation to doom scroll right before sleep, which disrupts your rest.
And the urge to immediately check everything the second you wake up.
Yes. By using an old-fashioned alarm clock, you reclaim your morning consciousness and you ensure your first thoughts are your own, rather than dictated by a notification ping.
Okay, we've talked about the user side, but there has to be resistance. I mean, what are the platforms doing to fight the great deletion? These corporations thrive on our attention.
That's the conflict. The platforms are constantly engaged in counter strategies. They're making the deletion processes more complex. They're adding layers of friction that require multiple clicks and confirmations.
Of course they are.
They often resort to emotional manipulation, showing you pictures of the friends you will miss. They're also heavily investing in new features, often productivity-focused, to try and reestablish their perceived value. They're trying to sneak back in as a necessary tool, even if the core mechanism is still addictive.
They're essentially trying to rig the equation. Let's talk about that equation again, because it perfectly crystallizes the shift. People are running a calculation, whether they know it or not, on the cost of attention.
Yes. The underlying logic is that we have to assign a measurable weight to our cognitive piece. The formula people are applying is simple.
Okay.
The value of an app equals the benefit you get from it, minus two things added together, the time you lost to it plus the mental stress it caused you.
So if the benefit is, say, catching up on a niche hobby, but the time lost turns into 2 hours of wasted scrolling, and the mental stress is comparing yourself negatively to 100 strangers,
Then the value is negative. And for millions of people, that equation has turned dramatically negative. This is why the deletion is happening.
right?
People are actively choosing the long-term sustained peace of mind, which is the goal of the authentic shift over the momentary, fleeting dopamine hits that the algorithms offer. They are realizing constant connection is not connectivity, it's fragmentation.
And the final insight here. We're moving away from being defined by the technology we use.
We are moving away from being passive users defined by systems designed to extract our data and attention,
And consciously moving back to being self-directed, resilient humans.
who use technology strictly as a supportive tool for their own self-written story.
That synthesizes the entire movement perfectly. What an incredibly deep exploration of 2026. We walked through the 4 fundamental edits defining the authentic shift. We saw the wardrobe edit, prioritizing quiet luxury, quality, and longevity.
Then the social edit, fighting that loneliness epidemic by committing to small, reliable micro-communities and physical proximity.
We looked at the identity edit, leveraging main character energy to find agency and romanticize the ordinary. And finally, the essential foundation, the noise edit, where digital minimalism restores our cognitive peace.
It's a powerful cultural reclamation. The underlying momentum of all of these shifts is the collective decision to stop living a life dictated by external pressures,
Whether it's corporate algorithms or fast fashion cycles.
or massive digital networks, and to start building a life defined by internal values and intentionality.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah.
It means we're finally building a life that is truly owned, based on principles of quality and self-efficacy, rather than a life that is constantly rented from an algorithm, dictated by noise and comparison.
And this moment requires deliberate choice.
It does.
The commitment to authentic living requires a recognition that sometimes the most profound action you can take is the act of subtraction, the edit.
Thank you for guiding us through this insightful analysis and for synthesizing the complexities of 2026 so clearly.
My pleasure, as always.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We want to leave you with one final thought, a specific, provocative question for your own authentic edit today. You've heard the formula. Value equals benefit minus time lost and mental stress. We challenge you to identify the single most common activity you perform, be it checking news, scrolling a feed, or responding to notifications, where the mental stress consistently outweighs the actual benefit. What is the first small piece of noise you can eliminate today to reclaim a measure of your attention? Start your own edit. We'll talk soon.